The village was silent, but the air was thick with fear. The moon, once bright and full, now hid behind the clouds. Somewhere in the village square, an elder's voice broke the silence. "A terrible thing has happened," he announced, his voice trembling. "Adanma is missing." Women gasped, clutching their wrappers tightly. Men exchanged worried glances. Children, sensing the tension, clung to their mothers. Adanma, the pride of the village, had vanished without a trace. Just yesterday, she had danced at the village square, laughing and twirling in her bright wrapper. But now, the only thing left of her was the silence that filled the night. Chika stood among the crowd, her heart pounding. She lowered her head, pretending to wipe tears from her eyes. But deep inside, her fear was not of losing a friend. It was of being discovered. The elders called for a search party. Young men grabbed their lanterns and machetes, ready to comb through the thick forest surrounding the village. But as they disappeared into the night, a cold shiver ran down Chika's spine. She knew the truth, and if anyone found out, her fate would be worse than death. Long before that fateful night, before whispers of Adanma's disappearance filled the air, two little girls ran through the dusty part of the village, their laughter echoing under the setting sun. Adanma and Chika were inseparable. They had been born just months apart, their mothers sharing the same bathing hut. From childhood, they played together, bathed in the village stream, and sat by the fireside, listening to the elders' stories. Adanma was the one with the kind heart, always sharing her food, always the first to help when someone was in trouble. Chika was different, bold, daring, and always eager to prove herself. But as they grew older, something changed. Adanma blossomed into a beauty that turned heads wherever she went. Her dark skin glowed like fresh palm oil, and her eyes sparkled like the morning dew. Men from neighboring villages whispered about her, and even the village elders spoke of how lucky her future husband would be. Chika saw it all, and though she smiled, deep inside, jealousy festered like a hidden wound. One evening, as they pounded yam in Adanma's mother's hut, Chika hesitated before speaking. "Adanma, do you ever wonder why people love you so much?" Adanma laughed, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Why do you ask such a question, Chika? The village loves you too." But Chika knew it wasn't the same. She saw how the young men looked at Adanma, how the village admired her grace, and in that moment, she wished just for a second that she could trade places with her. She would never say it out loud, not yet, but soon fate would test their friendship in a way no one could have imagined. One morning, a stranger arrived in the village, tall, strong, and with confident gait of a warrior. Obinna was the kind of man every father wanted for his daughter. He had been away for years, trading in distant lands, and now he had returned to find a wife. When he walked through the village square, the women whispered behind their clay pots. "Did you see him? They say he has wealth. Who will he choose?" But there was no doubt in anyone's mind. The moment Obinna laid eyes on Adanma, his decision was made. He watched her from afar as she laughed with the other girls, her voice like the sound of a flute on a calm night. She was everything he had ever wanted. Graceful, kind, and full of life. Chika saw it too. She watched as Obinna's eyes followed Adanma, as he asked about her family, as he sent his friend Uche to speak to the elders. A knot tightened in her chest. Why Adanma? Why was it always Adanma? That night, as the moon rose over the village, Chika lay awake on her bamboo mat, staring at the thatched roof above her. She knew she had lost something she never even had, and she wasn't ready to let it go. The village buzzed with excitement when Obinna's family announced their visit to Adanma's compound. It was the official first step in a traditional Igbo marriage. On the appointed day, Obinna arrived with his family, dressed in a fine cloth, his red cap signifying his status as a noble young man. His elders carried gourds of palm wine, kola nut, and yam gifts to show respect and honor. The women of the village gathered outside, whispering eagerly, "Obinna has chosen well. Adanma will make a good wife. They will have beautiful children." Inside the hut, Adanma's father, a respected elder, welcomed the visitors. After pleasantries and proverbs were exchanged, Obinna's uncle cleared his throat. "We have seen a beautiful flower in your compound," he said, smiling, "and we wish to pluck it before another hand does." The room filled with laughter, but Chika, standing in the corner, felt like she couldn't breathe. This was really happening. Adanma shyly accepted the proposal, and her family agreed to the next stage, which is the wine-carrying wedding ceremony, where she would officially be given to Obinna. That night, while the village celebrated, Chika sat alone by the stream, her feet in the cold water, her nails dug into her palms. "It should have been me," she whispered. And in that moment, jealousy consumed her completely. Chika had heard stories about the powerful native doctors who could control fate itself, but she had never visited one until now. With her wrapper tied tightly around her waist, she made her way through the thick forest, ignoring the sounds of the night creatures. The native doctor's hut was deep in the woods, covered in dried animal skins and decorated with charms. When she arrived, the old man looked at her and smiled knowingly. "You seek something dangerous." Chika hesitated, but then knelt before him. "I want Adanma gone." The native doctor studied her, his milky eyes piercing through her soul. "Are you ready for the prize?" he asked. Chika nodded. She didn't care about the consequences. All she knew was that she could not watch Adanma marry Obinna. The native doctor handed her a small calabash filled with dark liquid. "Pour this in her food before the moon disappears," he warned. Chika's hand trembled as she took the portion. She had sealed her fate, and soon so would Adanma. The next evening, Adanma's family hosted a feast in preparation for the wedding. There was roasted goat meat and steaming bowls of ofe nsala. Chika sat beside Adanma, pretending to be happy. Her heart pounded as she watched Adanma scoop a piece of yam into her mouth. The yam Chika had sprinkled with the herbalist portion. Minutes later, Adanma gasped, clutching her stomach. "I feel strange," she whispered, her face pale. Then, before anyone could react, she stumbled out of the hut and into the darkness. The villagers searched all night, calling her name, lighting torches, combing the forest, but Adanma was gone, and she never returned. Days turned into weeks, and Adanma's disappearance cast a dark cloud over the village. Obinna was devastated. He refused to eat, refused to speak. He spent hours by the river, staring at the water, hoping for a miracle. But while the village mourned, one person refused to accept things as they were. Uche, Obinna's best friend. From the beginning, he had always been wary of Chika. Something about her smile never seemed real. And now, after Adanma vanished, he noticed how quickly Chika positioned herself by Obinna's side. It's too soon, Uche muttered to himself. One evening, he confronted Obinna. Brother, open your eyes. How does a girl disappear without a trace? Have you asked yourself who benefits the most? Obinna, tired and heartbroken, shook his head. What are you saying? I am saying, Uche whispered, that Chika knows more than she's telling us. Obinna refused to believe it. Chika was Adanma's best friend. She was mourning too, wasn't she? But Uche wasn't done. He would find out the truth, no matter the cost. The days turned into months, and the pain of Adanma's disappearance slowly began to fade. But not for everyone. Obinna remained a broken man. He spent his days working at the farmlands in silence, his once bright eyes now dark with sorrow. The villagers whispered about him, saying it was time to move on, that he could not grieve forever. And Chika was there to make sure he didn't. She played the role of the caring friend, bringing him food, sitting beside him when he didn't speak, pretending to share in his grief. Adanma would want you to be happy, she would say softly. And little by little, Obinna began to listen. One evening, his parents called him into the hut. Son, his mother said gently, you must marry. You are not meant to live in sorrow. Obinna sighed. I cannot forget Adanma. No one is asking you to, his father said. But life must go on. Chika is a good woman, and she has always cared for you. The words unsettled him. He did not love Chika, not the way he had loved Adanma. But his parents were right. He could not remain alone forever. And so, a decision was made. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Obinna was going to marry Chika, but Uche was furious. You cannot do this, Obinna. Uche stormed into his friend's hut the night before the betrothal ceremony. Obinna sighed. What do you want me to do, Uche? My family insists. The village agrees. And Chika is not Adanma. Uche's voice was sharp. She has fooled everyone, but I see through her. Obinna shook his head. Brother, let the past rest. But Uche refused. He had spent weeks listening, watching, asking questions the night Adanma disappeared. Only one person had been with her before she ran into the darkness. Chika. What if I told you Chika had something to do with Adanma's disappearance? Obinna froze. That's heavy accusation, Uche. Then let me prove it, Uche challenged. Give me time. If I find nothing, you can marry her. But if I do, Obinna hesitated, torn between loyalty and doubt. You have until the wedding day. It was all Uche needed. Uche's investigation led him to the one place he knew would hold answers, the home of the native doctor. The old man sat in the dimly lit hut, chewing on bitter kola. I was wondering when someone would come asking, he said. Uche felt his stomach tighten. Tell me what you know. The native doctor chuckled. Your friend's bride-to-be came to me months ago. asking for a way to rid herself of her rival. She did not listen to my warning. Uche clenched his fist. Did she kill Adanma? Not with her own hands, the native doctor murmured, but the spirits always collect their debt. And at that moment, a gust of wind blew through the hut, making the charms on the wall shake violently. The native doctor's eyes darkened. Go, boy. The ancestors will not stay silent much longer. Uche ran back to the village, his heart pounding. The truth had come out before it was too late. The day of the wedding arrived. The villagers gathered in the village square, dressed in their finest wrappers. Drums echoed in the air, and the smell of roasted goat meat filled the atmosphere. Chika stood proudly beside Obinna, her head held high. This was her moment. She had won. But just as the ceremony was about to begin, a loud wail pierced the air. A cold wind swept through the village, making the elders shiver. And then a voice. Chika, why? The crowd gasped. The voice was faint, but it was unmistakable Adanma's voice. Chika staggered back, her face pale. No, no, this is not possible. The villagers looked around in fear. The air grew thick. The sky darkened, and then, suddenly, Uche stepped forward. This wedding cannot continue, he declared. All eyes turned to him as he raised his voice. Chika is not who you think she is. She is the reason Adanma is gone. Lies! Chika shrieked. I loved Adanma. She is my best friend. But before she could say another word, the wind howled again, and the ground beneath her feet cracked. The ancestors had spoken. Chika screamed as her body convulsed. She clutched her head, falling to her knees. Forgive me, I didn't mean to. But it was too late. The elders stepped forward. Chika has betrayed the gods. She cannot remain among us. And so, in the presence of the entire village, Chika was banished, forced to wander the forest as a cursed woman. Obinna collapsed to the ground, grief striking, but Uche placed a firm hand on his shoulder. She may be gone, but justice has been done. And as the sun set, the village knew one thing for certain. Jealousy had no place in the land of the living. Many months had passed since Chika's banishment. Life in the village slowly returned to normal, but the village never forgot the tragedy. Women still whispered about Adanma's fate. Some claimed to hear her laughter in the wind. Obinna, though he lived, he was only a shadow of the man he once was. He spent his days alone, tending to the small garden of utazi and ogiri leaves he had planted in Adanma's memory. He never stopped thinking about her, never stopped wondering what really happened that night. Then, one fateful morning, everything changed. It began with a child's scream. She is back! She is back! The entire village rushed toward the entrance of the forest, where a young girl pointed with trembling hands. And there, emerging from the shadows of the trees, stood a woman. Her once radiant skin was paler, her feet bare and bruised, her hair tangled like wild vines. But her eyes were the same. Adanma. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the villagers stepped back in fear. Some fell to their knees, others clutched their chests. Obinna pushed his way forward, his heart pounding. He couldn't believe his eyes. Adanma, is it truly you? Her lips quivered and then weakly she whispered, Obinna. The moment he heard his name, he ran to her, catching her just before she collapsed. Adanma was taken to the elder's hut, where the village healers gave her herbs and warm broth. She was weak but alive. When she finally gathered enough strength to speak, her voice was soft, but her words sent chills through the hut. The night I disappeared, I felt something strange in my stomach after eating the food Chika gave me. I ran outside, but before I could call for help, I collapsed. The room was silent. I don't remember much after that, she continued. Only that I woke up in the deep forest, unable to move, my body burning with fever. I thought I would die there. Tears welled in Obinna's eyes. But then an old woman found me. The elders exchanged glances. Who was she? One of them asked. Adanma shook her head. I don't know. She spoke in riddles and told me the spirits were not done with me. She nursed me back to health, but she warned me not to return to the village until the ancestors allowed it. The room fell in hushed whispers. The ancestors protected you, one elder finally said. They waited until the truth was known before bringing you back. Adanma looked at Obinna. Her eyes filled with unspoken pain. Tears streamed down Obinna's face as he clutched her hands. The return of Adanma sent shockwaves through the village. The villagers, once unsure of Chika's guilt, now had no doubt. The elders gathered at the village square and made a final decree. Chika's banishment was to remain permanent. She would never be allowed to set foot in the village again. As for Adanma, the village rejoiced in her return. Drums were beaten, a feast was prepared, and women braided her hair in intricate patterns as a symbol of her victory over death. But for Obinna, there was only one thing left to do. One evening, under the glow of the setting sun, he knelt before Adanma, his voice trembling. I lost you once. I do not wish to lose you again. Will you still be my wife? Adanma's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of joy. Yes, Obinna, 1,000 times yes. And so, the wine-carrying wedding ceremony that had once been stolen from them was finally held. This time, there was no deceit, no jealousy, only love, laughter, and blessings of the ancestors. As Obinna and Adanma danced beneath the moonlight, the villagers cheered. Balance had been restored, and the spirit of the land smiled once more. Many years later, when elders told the story of Adanma and Chika, they would always end with these words. Evil may hide in the shadows, but truth will always find its way home. And so, the story lived on, not just as a warning, but as a reminder that love, when true, can never be stolen.